Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a Brainiac.
Welcome into Leather Brains. Your host, Slapdog here, and we are back in business. We took a 2-week break. It was nice. You know, we've been grinding all season long, and it was due for a 2-week vacation. It was a great vacation, but we're back in business, baby. Leather Brains is back on the mic, and I'm joined today by Scotty Del Rey, and I did rhyme that not intentionally, but I think I'm a lyrical genius. Alan Casanova Castro is not with us today. He's still on a longer vacation, which is, he's worked so hard. So we needed to give him an extra week off. But Scotty, I appreciate you having you with us today. Thank you for jumping on the show.
Yeah, I'm obviously happy to be here, like no doubt about it. But I have to admit, after the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl, I have pretended that football doesn't exist for the last 4 weeks. Like legitimately. We started putting together show notes and we're talking about all these combine stuff and all these and I'm like, oh, I gotta get caught up on all the things that have happened. Because I started looking and I'm like, oh shit, there have been signings already. I didn't even know about Stafford. I was like, oh, good.
Well, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. I mean, there are plenty of NFL fans out there that are unfamiliar that things are still happening. So today's episode, just kind of as you mentioned, is going to be going over all the different trade rumors, the conversations regarding potential trades. There's players that are coming back for another season. We're going to be covering all that. We're also going to be talking about the combine a little bit, so we're briefly going to mention that. But before we jump into anything, I want to talk about March Gladness for a little bit. Every single year we do March Gladness. We're giving away free signed NFL jerseys each week of March to bring some joy, to spread some joy for the month of March. It is a sad time because NFL is not on, so it's just kind of a remembrance that there are NFL is still happening and try and spread some joy and cheer to all the Brainiacs out there. So this week we are giving away a free Rashee Rice signed NFL jersey. All you got to do, you got to go retweet the tweet over on Twitter at Leatherbrains. Tell us your favorite NFL player of all time and give us a follow. So if you're interested, it is a 100% absolutely free Rashee Rice jersey this week. And for the rest of the month, we're going to be giving away a free signed jersey each week. So go check that out. But let's talk about football. I guess before we talk about football, Scotty, we've been a little absent, as we've been vacationing. I was in Cancun. I think you went to Puerto Rico, was it?
Yeah, I actually went to Somalia and then went over to St. Petersburg, Russia. And I think I solved all the world's problems while I was traveling.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you for doing that.
In 2 weeks, traveled the whole globe. Pretty good.
It largely is thankless work for what you do for us. So not even just here on the show, but worldwide, how important you are to multiple countries. So thank you.
People don't give me enough credit. I mean, that's just the story of my life, honestly.
Yeah. I think all Brainiacs out there should go give you some credit and just say thank you, and maybe give you some money too.
Yeah,
never hurts.
Just a thank you for your service. Me and the troops who stormed Omaha Beach, we're kind of on the same playing field, in terms of value to the society.
Yeah, sure, we can go with that. But while we were on vacation, what have you been doing to cope with the lack of football? Do you have any new hobbies or anything you've been doing in your free time now that we're not glued to our TV every Sunday?
Yeah, I have been. My wife is mad at me because, first of all, my whole life for all of football season is football. And so, of course, all women everywhere. There are plenty of NFL fans who are women, especially nowadays. But many wives out there can relate to holy shit, it's like they're single on Sundays because I'm just leave me alone. I'm going to be watching football the whole day. And then, by the way, we're going to record our show and I'm going to talk about more football. And then I'm going to think about football every single day until the following Sunday. So that's my usual schedule. Now, with all this free time, I have dedicated my life to the game of chess. I am obsessed with chess. I'm playing in my first over-the-board classical chess tournament next week. I have joined a chess club in our hometown. I'm going to get my ass kicked by everybody because I guarantee they're all way better than me. But I have
But the
thrown
first step,
myself at
this
chess.
is like the first step in going down a very deep rabbit hole, because even if you're going to be asked, like, you're still going to learn. And if you're going to commit time, like most people, such as myself, I like the game of chess. I'm really bad at chess. I'm very bad at chess, but I have the chess app. I like playing with a couple friends, and it's just kind of, something to pass the time. You get like 3 days to make your move, so it's very nonchalant, laissez-faire. If you're going to join a chess club, that's like the next step in like addiction almost.
Oh, it's 100%. It's become an addiction. It remains to be seen if it's going to stick around for a long time. But as of right now, it's like I've replaced football with chess to a certain degree. Like I wake up and I'm thinking about chess. I've been pretty heavily involved in chess for many years now, but it's definitely upgraded. So if you want to play chess with me, just let me know, and maybe you can teach me some stuff before I go get my ass kicked. The other thing to note, I just learned this myself. When you do these like big tournaments, especially when you're like me and I've never played in a tournament like this, so I'm unrated. And the vast
Underrated,
majority,
some would say.
well, I think I'm underrated, but
Yeah.
that remains to be seen. I'm probably going to get my ass kicked. But the vast majority of players that I'm going to play are going to be like 8 years old. And that's just the way it's going to be. I'm just going to show up and get my ass kicked by a bunch of nine-year-olds in this tournament.
Do you think that's going to
guarantee
take a blow to your ego?
No, I'm expecting it fully. The thing about chess is it's like any other weird kind of skill, is that if you start really young, you get good really, really fast. So, I mean, there's in Brazil, there's a player rated, if you don't know anything about chess, it's going to bore you, but if there's a player rated 1600, which is that's an above average player. In Brazil, they are 3 years old.
3?
3.
This kid is
3
barely
years old.
walking.
Yeah, they barely know their ABCs, but damn, can they play the Sicilian? Like, they are so good at chess. So that's exactly what's going to happen to me. I'm going to get killed by a bunch of 8-year-olds.
It would hurt my ego. I don't like losing in general. I don't think anybody does, but like I'm very, very competitive and I hate losing. And so that would be like the cherry on top. If I go to one of these chess tournaments and I'm playing an 8-year-old and I just get my ass kicked, that would be the biggest ego blow for me, I think, possible.
See, I've coped with that already. I know that that's probably going to happen. My only goal so my number one goal, I play 5 games. My number one goal is to win 1 game. I'm thinking maybe I get matched up with somebody who's kind of equally new as me, and maybe I can win 1 game. So that's kind of like my numbers goal. My actual goal is just to not totally blow it. Like if I lose, I want to be outplayed. And so my goal is just to not do anything so stupid that I just lose immediately. So if I can accomplish those things, I'll report back to you. If not, I might not talk about it ever again.
Yeah, we'll just delete this out. And so if anybody goes back and listens, it's just us talking about football. So like, is there a time limit? And like, do you have like, a lot of people have seen the Queen's Gambit, right? Where they have like after your move, you click the box and then the timer starts for the other person. Is that like how this works here, or what's the protocol?
Yep, it's a U.S. Chess Federation rated tournament, so you have to have a clock and you have to notate your moves using algebraic chess notation. So I had to learn how to do all that.
Oh.
And yeah, so it's the time control is good though. It's a classical time control, so it's a 90-minute game with 30-second increments. So every move you make, it adds 30 seconds to your clock. So I'm thinking at my level, the time isn't going to be an issue. I don't think I'm going to have to spend if I don't know what to do in the first 5 minutes of thinking about it, I'm not going to figure it out. So it's like I don't think time's going to be a problem. When you get to the higher levels of chess, they'll think about it for 20 minutes and they can visualize 10 different lines, 5 moves deep and 10 moves deep. I can't do that. So I don't think time's going to be a problem. Hopefully.
Are you doing this alone, or you're like, you're going in cold turkey? I mean, obviously you've been playing chess, but like you don't have like an amigo to take with you so you guys can drink your sorrows away?
Nope. I'm just going at it and seeing what happens.
That's bold. That means you're really dedicated. It means it's
We'll see.
something you're very interested in if you're going to go do it by yourself.
Well, if I lose, there won't be anybody there to witness it. So
That's
it's like
also true.
Yeah,
Also true.
I'm kind of doing it undercover. I was thinking about going in with a fake mustache.
Wait a minute. You already have a mustache.
Yeah, I'll get a fake one.
Just put some wax in it and try and push it up.
And I can curl it at the ends, probably.
Yeah, curl it at the ends a little bit, and then it'll really throw them off, and then they'll be like, "Who is this guy?"
If I get a curled mustache and a monocle, I guarantee you, I'm not losing. I'm winning.
Yeah, no, that. You better be damn good at chess if you're gonna be wearing a monocle. But I do like a monocle. I think monocles are badass, but only under certain circumstances. I think chess definitely applies for that. Now, if you're wearing a monocle to like the club, I don't know if that's probably not the right move. That's just my take.
I don't know. It kind of depends on your level of swag. There are some people who could pull off, like, I think of somebody with a lot of like Bruno Mars.
Dude,
He could wear a
honest to
monocle.
God, that was exactly who I was thinking of. Like Bruno
That's
Mars
kinda
with
crazy.
a monocle at the club. I probably would. I mean, at any club that I would go to, if Bruno Mars is there, I'm already pretty pumped. But if he's wearing a monocle, I probably wouldn't think twice about it.
You ever think about this is such a tangent from football. You ever think about how weird it would be to see someone that you like is famous that you know from being famous, and then you realize how short they are? Because I think Bruno Mars is like 5'5". I think if I walked up to him, I'm just I'm gonna be disappointed. Like no matter, I know he's short, but once I see him, I'll be like, you're not that cool.
He's 5'5".
Look how small you are.
Yeah, he's just a small,
That's what I
wee
guess.
little lad.
That's pretty good. He'd come up to like my shoulder almost.
I think my wife is almost 5'5".
Yeah. No, I mean,
Wonder
you
how
don't
much
get to
he
choose your.
weighs.
He's got to weigh like 120.
You think this is public knowledge? How much does Bruno Mars weigh? He's born in 85. His height is 5'5". His weight is not publicly available. Okay.
If he's 5'5", he can't. He's kind of a slim
66
dude.
kilograms.
What the hell is that? This is America.
How much is 66 kg in pounds? He weighs 145 pounds. You could pick him up. I could.
100%.
We could.
I
Throw him.
wrestled at 145 pounds in ninth grade.
Yeah. That's just his life at 145 pounds.
Man.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah, no respect. Never mind. He can't pull off the monocle.
yeah, get out of here. You need to be tall. You need to be at least 6 foot to ride that monocle ride.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Anyway, what are you doing to cope without football besides sitting
Man.
here and talking with me about random bullshit?
I've been busy. I've been really busy. I'm a business owner, so I've been very, 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 very busy with that. But that's really. I don't have a lot of free time anymore, to be completely honest. So any free time that I have is I've been reading. I like to read. So
We are the lamest two
I know.
human beings.
I know
This is crazy.
We're reading and playing chess. So you would think we're like 70 here. Yeah, no, I admittedly I haven't had any time to pick up any new hobbies. I've been very busy. I have been going to trivia night with some friends. That doesn't end well for us. We usually take last place, but I do like trivia. I'm just very bad at it.
Some of the people who go to trivia seem to know everything.
Yeah, and then it makes me think, are you cheating?
Yeah, I don't. Trivia is wild because if you're just walking around your town, like maybe it's just me and I'm just kind of a negative guy, but I just assume almost everybody is very stupid. Like I'm
I think
pretty
that's
stupid.
a fair assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I go to Walmart. I see what's out there. These
Like I'm out in the public.
these animals. Yeah, I don't know. But then you go to trivia night and you're like, yeah, these guys don't know any more than I do. And then bam, they're like, oh, who was the
You get every
Secretary
question
of
right.
State in 1872? And they just bam, they just
Yeah.
know it. Like how the fuck?
It's very frustrating. And then we were going to this one trivia place, and we were active. We were getting the questions right, and the trivia guide was he was getting them wrong. Like we Googled it afterward. Like we don't cheat, but we were pissed because we didn't get the point. And we're like, this is like we felt very confident. We Google it, and we were right, and he was wrong. And they're like, we're not coming back here. Like if the trivia guy doesn't have the right answer, and like this is effed up. So
That's crazy. How does that happen? Does he not have the internet?
I don't know.
Is he a pilgrim?
I don't know. I just refused to go back there because I was like, we got the question right, and you got the question wrong as the guy who was hosting trivia night. So, yeah. Aside from that, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. I've been trying to keep up with the NFL news, and there's quite a lot of NFL news today, Scotty. So let's just jump into it. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. There's a lot of trade discussions. There's a lot of players who are moving around and coming back and potentially might be moved. So I kind of want to open the floor for conversation about all of these different things that are going to happen here today, and then we'll wrap it up with the combine and we'll get the hell out of here. So let's start out with Matthew Stafford. We were on vacation and there was a lot of chatter regarding Matthew Stafford. Stafford, he wanted more cheddar. He wanted some more money. And so that was the Rams actually gave him permission to go test the market and see what he was potentially worth. The teams that were kind of looking at him were the Raiders and the Giants. But all in all, it sounds like while some teams were willing to potentially pay for him, Stafford did say that he would be willing to take a little bit less money to stay with the Rams. And it sounds like that was kind of the case because he did re-sign with the Rams. They restructured a contract to keep him around. And the Rams also did re-sign their left tackle. So, What are your thoughts on Matt Stafford? I'll start with that.
Just generally in terms.
Yeah, you think he's pretty handsome?
Well, he's definitely handsome. His wife is interesting. She keeps getting headlines for random stuff, so that's kind of weird.
I don't like whoever they're using as a dentist. Have you looked at their teeth? They kind of scare me.
Well, they got like veneers. Matthew Stafford's
but
got like these fake,
obnoxious veneers.
Yeah.
Go look at his wife's teeth, especially.
Yeah. What's her name? Kelly.
Kelly.
I think it's Kelly. Let me
look at Kelly Stafford's teeth.
Oh, I don't know how to spell.
This is good
teeth.
podcasting.
This is good podcasting. Yeah, hers aren't terrible. I think Matthew Stafford's are more obviously bad. Veneers are so tough because I saw a video once on the internet, so it's got to be real, of this supposed, I don't know who does veneers. Is it like an orthodontist or is it like a surgeon? I don't know. Whoever does veneers.
Your dentist do it. I have veneers.
Okay. So whoever does veneers, they were talking about like different celebrity veneers, and they said like Emma Watson has veneers. She's like, you can tell because of this, 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 and this, but they look perfectly natural. Like unless you knew what to look for, you wouldn't know. And then you have veneers like Matthew Stafford, and it's like, okay. And the older you get, the harder it is to mask that they're veneers. But some of them just look worse than if you just had some yellow teeth. Like everyone's teeth get yellow eventually. Like you're using them every day, so just accept it. I don't understand all these cosmetic things. Like maybe if your teeth were really really bad, then and you had millions of dollars, okay, then I can understand. But for the most part, like you don't need Botox, you don't need this stuff done to your face. Like you don't.
I think Kelly's definitely done that.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. But in any case, Matthew Stafford, I still put him as like a definitely top 10 quarterback, probably more towards top 5 in terms of skill level, even though he's old. I just think he has proven himself time and time and time again. And this whole idea that the Rams wanted to get rid of him in the first place didn't make sense to me because it's not like the Rams are rebuilding. Like they were competing just last year. They were like a couple plays away from being a legitimate Super Bowl team. Why? Like, why would you want to do that? And I understand he's getting old. I understand you have to start thinking about the future, but this is a team that is very near the top of the NFL right now, even with kind of an old roster and trouble with injuries and such. So if I'm them, I'm like, yeah, let's re-sign Matt Stafford. Maybe he'll take a discount because he doesn't want to go start over somewhere else at this point in his career. And let's just try and ride this out as long as we can. So I was very glad to see that they signed him again because I would have been very disappointed if he had to go to some terrible team, in his old age and struggle for the last few years of his career. I think the Rams, my brother-in-law is a big Rams fan. I've told him over and over again. I can't remember his name, but the GM of the Rams might be like the genius of our time. Like he doesn't make any bad moves. They went and got Matt Stafford. They won a Super Bowl. They traded away all of their assets and were like, okay, they won their one Super Bowl. Now they're going to suck for a decade. Guess what? They haven't. They found Puka Nacua out of the as a diamond in the rough. Like this is a guy who just constantly gets it done over and over again. So even though I didn't understand wanting to get rid of Matt Stafford, I'm kind of like, okay, whatever he decides, I'm on board with because he seems to know way more than I ever will about the game. But ultimately, I'm very glad that they kept him.
I think it shows like good continuity between the front office and the coaching staff, right? Like they have a great Snead and McVay have to have a great relationship to get that done. And so I agree with you. And the Rams largely have been very, very successful since Matthew Stafford has arrived. I think it was more Matthew Stafford wanted more money, and I think the Rams were, basically saying, like, you're not worth any more money. And then that's why they kind of let him go explore other options just to see what he's worth so we could, they could try and match it or pay him, fairly. But I didn't, just like you had mentioned, I never really saw a path where it made sense for Matthew Stafford to leave the Rams because essentially then you're resetting your franchise. You're resetting that organization and there's going to be rebuilding. And right now, you don't want that, right? And that kind of brings up the conversation of Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is on the trade block and he is potentially on the move. And I don't hate that one as much. Mm-hmm. Obviously losing your quarterback, that's detrimental to the entire team. Losing Cooper Kupp, I mean, he he at one point in time was he won the Triple Crown. He was a great asset. However, he is starting to get older. He's showing. I mean, even last year, is showing signs of slowing down. So I don't hate them moving on from Cooper Kupp. I think that makes sense because they're still going to get some trade value out of him. There's still some teams out there that we'll talk about as we get further in this conversation. There are teams that do need a wide receiver, right? And Cooper Kupp still has gas left in the tank. It's just kind of a matter of how much. And I think the Rams are kind of willing to say, hey, look, we're okay with moving on from Coop. We don't want to leave Stafford, or we don't want to move on from Stafford just yet because he is integral to the entire team and the offense especially. But you have Puka Nacua. They've shown that they can get it done with not a lot of weapons on the wide receiver spectrum. And so, yeah, I don't hate them moving on from Cooper Kupp, but this kind of brings on the conversation of quarterbacks in general right now. I mean, Stafford's staying in L.A., and the free agent quarterbacks that are kind of currently being discussed right now are Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Sam Darnold are kind of the big three at the moment. You can maybe sprinkle in Carson Wentz just a little bit, but I would say the big three right now are those guys. And there are teams that need them. There are teams that need quarterbacks right now. So, with those three, do you see a path where either of those three quarterbacks are starting in the NFL next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. Ultimately, I look at a team like the Jets, which we're going to talk about the news with Aaron Rodgers, but, a team like the Jets knows, okay, like we are in full-on rebuild mode now. They've got a lot of young talent, so they just need to find something that can work at the quarterback position because ultimately, if they get someone like Sam Darnold, I know that already happened, but in sort of a vacuum, someone like Sam Darnold, relatively competent, someone who has had some recent success. You've got a ton of weapons. As long as you can run a semi-competent offense, it seems like they could compete with a lot of teams. I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl anytime soon, but they could compete with a lot of teams and maybe sneak a playoff berth in. So it's certainly possible. Ultimately, though, when you look at those three names, it's like, okay, I'm not all that excited about any of them. Like, I think Sam Darnold, given this last season and given the success that he saw, I think you can make an argument that maybe in the right situation, kind of like the Vikings, like, okay, he could lead a playoff team. But you look at Justin Fields, okay, one-dimensional. Russell Wilson, kind of old, makes some boneheaded plays, decent, but what you're getting with all three of these guys. So it wouldn't surprise me if any one of them or multiple are going to be starting quarterbacks, but those teams ultimately know what they're getting. It's sort of a bridge quarterback situation, or maybe in Justin Fields' case, just kind of a random sort of asset to mix things up in the meantime while you figure out your long-term plan.
I don't think any team is going to find success with Sam Darnold. I'm just going to say it right now. I think Kevin O'Connell put on a masterclass of how to utilize Sam Darnold to its fullest. The teams that are currently needing quarterbacks are needing quarterbacks for a reason. It's because they're not good teams. And you look at what the Vikings were last year. The Vikings were a phenomenal team, and they found success with Sam Darnold because I think they had such talent in other places that it allowed Sam Darnold to excel. But we also saw him crumble, right? I mean, we saw Sam Darnold crumble in the playoffs, and yeah, they were great during the regular season. But if you take Sam Darnold and you go put him on the Raiders, you're not going to find that same level of success because the Raiders organization and the Raiders players are not nearly in the same stratosphere as the Vikings were this last season. I think any team that signs Sam Darnold is in for a world of hurt because I don't think Sam Darnold's a great quarterback. I think Kevin O'Connell's just a hell of a coach, and that's where my mind goes. And the other two are bridge guys, and I think that's kind of what Sam Darnold is as well. I mean, I think he could find some sliver of success as a bridge quarterback, but I don't put any stock. I mean, the teams that need quarterbacks right now are the Giants, the Raiders, and the Jets. And so, we mentioned the Jets. It's official. Aaron Rodgers is officially moving on from the Jets, or maybe rather the Jets are moving on from Aaron Rodgers. So the teams to watch are the Raiders. The Colts have kind of mentioned they kind of want to get another guy in there to maybe have a quarterback competition with Richardson, which I understand. And then the Giants are definitely in that conversation. The Jets, which obviously the Jets are moving on from Rodgers, so that's not a landing spot for him. But do you see? Let me ask you this: do you think Aaron Rodgers will be a starting quarterback in the NFL next year? Do you think any team wants to take Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah,
as a starting quarterback.
It's hard to say no. I mean, if you're the Raiders and you're looking at the free agent quarterbacks that are available right now, I think Aaron Rodgers is right there near the top. Would you rather have Aaron Rodgers or Sam Darnold if you were the Raiders? I think the Raiders would rather have Aaron Rodgers because there is no illusion that they are going to be moving on in short order. I think the Raiders know they need a long-term solution, and that's kind of the way I'd look at any of these quarterbacks. Like, you're not going to bring them in and revitalize their career, and they're not going to become your franchise guy. Like, in all likelihood, that's not going to happen with any of them. So why not take the guy with the experience? Why not take the guy with the Super Bowl pedigree and know that pretty much no matter how it goes, you're going to get rid of him in like 1 to 2 years. And so you know that everyone's kind of on the same page, that you are looking to move on. Whereas if you bring a guy like Sam Darnold in, and then you have a similar, maybe Sam Darnold learned a lot from Kevin O'Connell, and he comes in and outperforms every other season he's had. And you have a similar situation that you had with the Vikings, where it's like you get to the end of the year and you're like, well, this is kind of a hard choice now. Like, what do we want to do? Do we want to move on? Do we want to invest in this guy? You don't have any of those complications with Aaron Rodgers. And plus, you get the added upside of, Aaron Rodgers has had a ton of success throughout his career, and maybe the Jets, just as an organization, is a soul sucker, and maybe you put him somewhere else and you get the old Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think anyone really thinks that's going to happen, but that's kind of how you can sell it to yourself in the mirror if you're looking at picking up a quarterback for the short term.
If I was an NFL franchise owner or GM, I wouldn't want Aaron Rodgers. I really wouldn't. I would be very active, because if you know that you're signing up for a bridge quarterback, the drama, you're going to sell jerseys. So I guess from a financial standpoint, that would be kind of nice. But like, what's that do to your culture? What's that do to your locker room? What's that do for the team when you bring in a guy? Like, we saw it happen with the Jets. We saw Aaron Rodgers come in, and this will never be truly admitted, but I largely believe Robert Saleh got fired because of Aaron Rodgers. And what he's done to that Jets organization as a quarterback, like, it was a paradigm shift for that entire team. And you see people like Garrett Wilson who are like, dude, I'm done with this place. I'm out. And that's your wide receiver one. That was your guy. And like, for what Aaron Rodgers did to that team, why would you want to bring that even in the short term? Like, I would rather have a quarterback who's maybe a little lesser in talent, but isn't going to blow up the entire locker room and cause a bunch of chaos and disruption in that way. So yeah. I wouldn't want to touch Aaron Rodgers with a 10-foot pole.
Maybe I am uncharacteristically optimistic about Aaron Rodgers, but I think we have all finally reached the time that nobody has any illusions about Aaron Rodgers anymore. Like, I don't think any team is, like, if they, say you're the Raiders and you're looking for a quarterback for the short term while you find your long-term guy, if you interview Aaron Rodgers and he says, well, you can sign me, but you need you to sign these 7 other players, and I need to be treated like a king, and I need to be like Russell Wilson was with the Broncos. I need my office, and I need my therapist to stand by me all the time, and he's going to draw up the plays, and Pete Carroll, you can't do anything. You're just not going to sign him because he's the only one that would have that vision of himself that he deserves any of that. So I think even Aaron Rodgers now hopefully has come to the realization, I'm on the tail end of my career. I can still play, but I'm not going to be the one calling the shots. And if he comes to that realization, I don't think those locker room problems carry over onto the next team. I think he kind of had to take a step back. Maybe he's going to do another ayahuasca trip in the offseason, and he's going to say, okay,
he will 100% be doing that.
Yeah. My ego is gone, and I'm not going to be demanding shit anymore. I'm just going to go play football for as long as I can and then retire and ride off into the sunset. And I think there's a high likelihood that he has that opinion of himself as well. There's no question that everybody else now has that opinion of him, that you can't be demanding stuff anymore. Like, if you want to play, we'll take you. We'll take the chance on you for a short term, but we all know what this is. You're a bridge quarterback. You're not calling the shots. And I think everyone's going to be on the same page about that going into 2025.
I don't even know if he has the talent level to be a decent bridge quarterback anymore. I really don't, because he looked terrible with the Jets. I mean, he looked atrocious with the Jets. And it's, you had mentioned like Aaron Rodgers bringing in all of his homies. The Jets are now also looking to move on from Davante Adams, and they're actively trying to take calls on him. The expectation is that if the Jets cannot find a deal, Davante will be cut.
Which I don't get that, by the way. Maybe this is just my idiot, puny brain. But, like, why as an organization are you saying, yeah, we're looking to trade him, but if we don't find a partner, then we're just going to release him?
Money.
Like, if you're every other team, wouldn't you be like, okay, we'll just wait for you to release him then? And then we don't have to give up anything. We'll just sign him if he wants to play.
Correct.
Like, why would you advertise that? I don't understand.
I don't fully understand that either. Money, I think, and because maybe a team is going to say, hey, we'll give you a 6th-round pick for him, and then at that point you get a free 6th-round pick, versus if you just cut him, then he has free reign. So like you still have him under contract to be able to try and get compensation.
Right, but that's the point of not saying we're just going to release him if we don't find, because if you admit that at the outset, then what is the motivation for any team to give you anything? They'll just wait till you release him.
Well, then you don't have first dibs. Like if Adams wants to go to, we'll say the Rams, but the Vikings are willing to give up a 6th-round pick, then the Vikings will say, hey, we'll give you a 6th-round pick and he'll come over to us, versus Davante Adams goes where he wants. So
seems like Davante Adams might not be worth that bartering either. I mean,
it kind of seems that way. I mean, he hasn't. They haven't traded for him, so he's still sitting on roster. But he's also getting older too, and that it's almost comical. Like you talk about the effect that, or I was talking about the effect that Aaron Rodgers had on the Jets organization. Like there's no freaking way the Jets would have went out and got Davante Adams had Aaron Rodgers not been like, hey, we need to go get my guy. He's going to make a huge impact here. And it's like, you traded for him, and now you're going to try and trade him away or cut him in the span of like 7 or 8 games that he played for you. And that just goes to show how much of a shit show of an organization the Jets really are. And you would hope that with some new coach, and by the way, they didn't have a head coach when they did any of this. They had like an interim head coach. And so now they have Aaron Glenn. Hopefully Aaron Glenn can create some stability there. But what an entire comical shit show the Jets were this last season, and really largely the last couple years. It's been complete disarray. And so
that's part of the reason why I maintain a level of optimism about Aaron Rodgers and him not, running every organization into the ground. Because, yes, we can look at last season and say, or the last couple seasons really, and say, look what Aaron Rodgers did to the Jets. But the Jets were already like that. I mean, the Jets have been a dumpster fire for decades. So, maybe Aaron Rodgers does not have that level of negative impact on basically any other team. It's just the Jets were uniquely capable of allowing one person to destroy everything.
Yeah. Well, let's move over to the 49ers. Deebo Samuel. This was big news. Deebo was traded to the Washington Commanders for a 5th-round pick. My initial thoughts were this is great for both parties. A 5th-round pick is not too crazy. I don't know if you've seen over on X the amount of James Harden comparison that Deebo was getting for putting on a bunch of weight, which was hysterical. But I think this makes sense. I think that for the Commanders needed another wide receiver to kind of, they have Scary Terry there who takes away the top, but now you have Deebo who can maybe kind of fill that slot role a little bit better for you. 5th-round pick, that's not anything crazy, and the 49ers needed to create some cap space there. So I like this move for both parties, but this is what I find to be really comical is Ian Rappaport, he had mentioned that Brandon Aiyuk is still available for trade as well. Brandon Aiyuk was very actively trying to get traded to the Commanders, and then instead it's his other buddy, wide receiver Deebo. So I found that to be really funny.
Brandon Aiyuk you remember all the drama with him, like he's got to be so frustrated. He's just like, dude, I've been trying to get out of here. You decide to trade someone, you trade Deebo. But ultimately, aside from all that drama stuff, I agree with you. I think this is a good move for the 49ers because a player like Deebo is awesome. He's versatile. He's a huge asset to have. But that given his play style, the older he gets, he is going to be less durable than almost every other wide receiver because he's basically a running back. I mean, he's a running back who catches passes. And we know the shelf life of running backs, and I think that's more comparable to what Deebo does than other wide receivers. So the older he gets, the way he plays, it's like, yeah, you've been really great, but we can free up some cap space, we can start looking toward the future, and we don't have to invest a bunch of money into a guy, unfortunately, who's really susceptible to these injuries and is going to be more and more so as the years compound. But then on the flip side of that, the Commanders, obviously an electric team, obviously excited about the future, and adding a little bit of veteran leadership is going to be massive for them. So I agree with you 100%. I think this is a good deal for both sides, and I'd be excited. I'm interested to see what happens with Aiyuk. I mean, I
think they keep him.
But now that Deebo's gone, he's probably happier. I mean, he knows now that he can play a bigger role. But
They also drafted Pearsall in the first round last year, and Jawan Jennings was no slouch either this season. So, like, I think the 49ers are going to ask for a large haul in return for Brandon Aiyuk, but I also don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility for them, just given how much success Jennings had and what their expectations for Pearsall moving forward. So that one, Aiyuk is an interesting one. I don't know how that's.
I'm trying to remember. Did they signed it? I think they signed Aiyuk to a long deal.
I believe they did.
Yeah,
but
they did 4-year deal.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. It's been so long.
Yeah, and then Allen, he's not here, but he did throw some notes in here. He said he thinks it's good. He likes his trade as well for both parties. And then he said Jennings is the big winner here, and I tend to kind of agree with him. Jawan Jennings had a great year last year. He looked very usable, and I think the 49ers kind of found that out too. So makes sense. It makes sense for everybody. I'm sure 49ers fans were they're probably largely happy because Deebo has been injury ridden quite a bit. So I think there was probably some sadness, but overall I think they kind of understand what this is moving forward. So there's that. We'll move over to the Chiefs, Scotty, your team.
Oh, I know.
Travis
People are
Kelce.
confused because I'm wearing a Cardinals sweater.
Yeah, you're supporting
this is just in solidarity for my friend Slapdog, who doesn't ever have happiness with his team. So I'm just here.
I thank you. I appreciate that. Travis Kelce. He has announced that he will be returning for another season. He's 35 years old, coming back for his 13th season. You want me to give my thoughts, or you want me to ask you yours first?
Yeah, go ahead. Tear him down. I'll build him back up.
Okay. I don't like this move. I really don't. I think Travis Kelce should have retired. I think he's not looked great. And he had moments this last season where he was okay, but the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce looked really bad. He looked really bad. He was slow coming off the ball. He missed a lot of blocks. He's getting older, and I'm like, man, like at 35 years old, you're still trying to play tight end, which is a very physically demanding position. It is arguably hard. It's just as hard, if not harder, to play a lineman position than a tight end position, because not only do you have to block, but then you have to run routes and et cetera, et cetera. I'm really concerned that his age is going to become a huge factor this next season, and he's going to slow you down, and he's going to slow the Chiefs down. And yes, he is a veteran. Yes, he knows how to play ball. I get all those things, but also he's getting old. Truthfully, he is getting old. He is. If Chiefs fans, you guys better pray that he does not look like what he did in the Super Bowl, because otherwise you've made a large mistake. And the other factor of this too is because Kelce has kind of propelled into superstardom across the NFL. What happens to Noah Gray, right? Like if Noah Gray shows up at camp and he starts to look better, then you have PR sitting there saying, you might want to bench Travis Kelce because Noah Gray actually looks like the better tight end here. But can you? Should you? What kind of feedback and flack are you going to get from Chiefs Kingdom because you've benched, a Hall of Fame tight end because he is slowing down and he's not looked as great? And so I'm of the belief that, okay, if he's going to come back, I think his snap share percentage starts to go down quite a bit this season.
We've already seen that. That's my rebuttal to everything you just said, is as he's aged and as he's slowed down, his time on the field and more importantly, his targets, his direct involvement with the offense has dwindled. We've talked about that for several seasons. They've found a way to work Noah Gray in and the other tight end. There are a lot of young, good tight ends in this room, and they all got work, mostly because all of our wide receivers have been dead for 3 years. But all of them are seeing, or in jail or whatever. But all of them are seeing targets. If anyone can figure out a way to make use of players that otherwise would not be useful, it's this offense. And we've seen that time and time again with people like Juju, with people even like Travis Kelce. Ultimately, this was totally up to Travis Kelce. I think the Chiefs said, whatever you want to do, we're going to keep you around if you want to stay. If you want to go, then go retire and live your life. I think the Chiefs would have been fine either way. But Travis Kelce, what he brings to the offense, especially as he's gotten older, has a lot less to do with his physical ability and a lot more to do with his mental ability. What he brings to the team is being on the same page with Patrick Mahomes and getting those key first downs, which he did even this season, which was overall a pretty lackluster season. And last year was also kind of a lackluster season by Travis Kelce standards. But he finds a way to make impacts in key moments of games, and he can do that, a handful of times, up until for even a couple more years. Tony Gonzalez retired at 37, so he's not even the oldest tight end that the Chiefs have had. And ultimately, I think it's fine. It doesn't surprise me that he decided to come back. We talked about this. I think the likelihood that he retired if they won the Super Bowl was much higher than if they lost, especially with how they lost. You don't really want to leave with that taste in your mouth. I think even if they got knocked out in the divisional round, he would have probably been more likely to retire than losing the Super Bowl in that fashion. So it doesn't surprise me that he came back, and I'm happy he's around. I think he can still be very useful to the offense, and Andy Reid is not going to make any crazy mistakes like we have to force feed Travis Kelce, and we know that because he hasn't been doing that for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I still think he should have retired. I really do. Whatever. I mean, he's back. There's nothing. I can't sit here and convince anybody, but I think I think for the Chiefs, it would have been better, especially from a cap perspective, if he would have retired, because then it could have helped them alleviate some cap space. So, but it is what it is. He's going to be back. So, congrats to him and all the Swifties. The Browns. This is a very interesting thing. Myles Garrett has requested to be traded from the Browns. This is my favorite defensive player right now. However, the Browns have stood strong and adamant that Myles is a foundational piece of the organization to build around. What are you building around? You don't have a quarterback. You don't really have much of an offense. It's not re-sign Jameis Winston. That's what I'm saying. But let him go. I mean, Myles Garrett has done a lot for the Browns organization and for that city, and it's just like, let him go have a chance to win, get some trade value for him, because you will. And you have so many things to figure out as a team, and now you're kind of holding Myles back from even allowing you as a team to grow, because you can still get value for him. And it's like, he's not going to be he is a force to reckon with, but he is not going to get you to the playoffs alone. And like, you have so many other things you need to figure out as an organization. Why would you just not go into full rebuild? I don't understand. And it
doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And there's been a lot of chatter about this, Scotty. The Bills are definitely very, very interested in Myles Garrett, as well as the Commanders, the Bears, and the Lions. And the Lions are, rumor has it, they are still very heavily pursuing trying to obtain Myles Garrett, which
would not be
Myles
fair.
Garrett and Aiden O'Connell? That would be insane.
The Lions have
Aiden
reached the
O'Connell,
point.
Hutchinson, sorry.
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell.
Aiden O'Connell's his little baby mustache over there on the sideline.
The Lions have reached the point now, sort of like where the Chiefs are at, where everyone gets mad if you give them pieces. If they get Myles Garrett, the NFL should be like, what the like the rest of the teams in the NFL should be like, what the fuck did you just let happen? Like, this isn't fair. How did you do that?
He's so
cool,
yeah,
that would be like worst. I mean, great for Myles Garrett. Worst case scenario for the rest of us, because that would be just terrifying.
That would be insane.
Yeah. No, I don't want any part of that. But
I do. I want to see
it.
chaos.
It doesn't make any sense to me that it doesn't make sense from either perspective, because even if you manage to, you decide, hey, Myles Garrett, they convince him to like play and not sit out or hold out or whatever. Like, even if you do that, he's not going to be happy. Players that aren't happy and feel like they're playing for nothing are not going to give their all. They're not going to go out there and sacrifice their bodies for the sake of, winning 4 games in the season and getting embarrassed. Like, it's just very stupid. And when you're the Browns, you are in no position to not like acquire all of the picks and all of this capital that you can. Like, why would you not be trying to sell all of your assets right now and just start rebuilding? Because you desperately obviously need to. Everybody sees it except for them. So it's like, okay, we can either start looking toward the future, or we can retain this awesome player who's going to hate us for retaining him, and who knows what he's going to look like. And it's just like, nobody wins in that situation.
Yeah, no. And then you have the Deshaun Watson contract that's looming over you, and he got hurt this last season and was out, and when does he come back? Should he even come back? Because he looked terrible when he was out there. And like, you really need to figure out a quarterback that's not named Deshaun Watson because he's not the answer. And so, yeah, like you're in this like little purgatory that you've really done on yourself. Like you completely did this to yourself with the Watson trade, and like, Nick Chubb is hurt and he was a staple, and now like he came back last season, didn't look the same. Like, I don't know, like just move on and rebuild. Like go full in on the rebuild, sell what valuable assets you still have, and like look towards trying to build something for the future. Because Myles Garrett, by the time you actually maybe even get to the point where you can compete, Myles Garrett's not going to be at the same level that he was at. And then at that point, you've just wasted it. And by the way, Myles isn't getting any younger either. I think he's 28 years old, 29 years old. So he's only got a couple years. Like, just move on. Just move on.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. If Myles Garrett, like if you could transition his talent, if he played quarterback and he was as good as he is on the defensive line as he would be at quarterback, then it would make a little bit more sense. Like, okay,
Sure.
You have this really, really important piece. Like, you need to try and make something happen with him. But it's like, even if you have the best defensive lineman in the history of the NFL, like how much of a difference is that going to make in terms of your win-loss when everything else is a dumpster fire? It's very stupid.
It is. And, we're talking about Deshaun Watson. Let's talk about sexual predators. Let's talk about Justin Tucker. Have you seen all the stuff going on with JT over there?
I haven't seen anything with the NFL at all since the last time we talked. So not really. I imagine that there's just more details coming out about his sexual escapades, which is not something I care too much to read.
Yeah, no. So like there's I think it's up to like 16 sexual allegations against Tucker at massage parlors. And all of this had happened prior to Deshaun, like from a time perspective, had happened prior to Deshaun Watson's. So I think Tucker saw all the shit happening with Deshaun Watson. I was like, yo, I got to stop going into these parlors and, swinging my meat around and leaving fluids all over the floor. Alan put it here. Justin Tucker and Deshaun Watson should have to massage each other as their punishments, which I think would be, I agree, Alan, by the way. I think that would be great. What a shame. Like, it's not hard to be a decent human being, but Justin Tucker was one of the best kickers in NFL history, and you've completely tarnished your name because you can't keep your peen in your pants. Like, it's just like, dude, why do people have to be so disgusting? Just be a decent guy. And obviously the NFL is like, they're investigating, but I'm like, man, like, and Tucker stands strong. He's like, this is all not true. And I'm like, dude, there's got to be some sort of truth in this when 16 allegations have come out. Like, regardless of all the details, like some of this has to be laced in truth.
Yeah, I mean, he still denies it, so that we have to some degree say, okay, all these are allegations. He's a high-profile individual with a lot of money. Allegations are nothing new. Scumbags try and get money out of high-profile people all the time by making stuff up. But similar to Deshaun Watson, like the sheer volume makes it feel like it's got to be mostly true. It's disgusting, obviously, and it's fun to joke about stupid shit, but at the end of the day, we kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, if this guy was actually like using his sort of position of cultural power to manipulate young women, like that's not really a laughing matter. Like, that's actually just disgusting. Like, that's terrible. But ultimately, we have to reserve judgment to a certain degree because nothing has been definitively proven and we don't really know the full story. I don't know. I'm being too responsible about this. Maybe he's just a pervert, and we just can say that.
I think he is a pervert.
You can be a pervert, just don't be a pervert who manipulates people into, like, you can find other people who are perverts who want to do pervert shit with you. Like you can do that parties. And totally consensually. You don't have to manipulate people and do it. And then the leaving stuff on the floor and on the tables is just crazy. Like, that's just a whole. Like, if that part is true, then everything else is true. Because anybody who would do that would do anything. Like, that's just as gross and disgusting as it gets. To
leave a mess and let them clean it up, like that's
you can be a real pervert without stooping to that level.
Yeah, no, that's jail time right there. The Bengals, Jamar Chase, he's still looking for a big contract, Scotty, with the Bengals, and it's said that if/when they come to an agreement. Jamar's contract will break the record for the biggest non-quarterback record in NFL history, which is no surprise. the cap space keeps going up every year, so of course that's going to happen. But the cap's not real. And then rumor has it that the Bengals and Chase are still very far apart on getting a deal done. I expect them to, but this kind of throws a little bit more of an interesting wrinkle in this. So T. Higgins is also, he's still looking for a contract extension, and news just broke not too long ago. He got franchise tagged again this season. So I think they're on the line for, I want to say it's $26 million for the second franchise tag. Dude, you have got to be freaking livid if you're T. Higgins. You got to be like, dude, what the fuck, man?
It's just it's similar to the Myles Garrett conversation. Like, it's not really a win-win situation because you're going to piss off this awesome player on your team who's sort of integral to your offense. Like, why do you want to do that? Especially because I've said it time and time again, but it just makes sense for the Bengals to move on. It makes sense. You have Jamar Chase, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL right now, probably on the list for one of the best ever. You have him. You can build around him. T. Higgins is a great, awesome player. You want him on your team, but you don't need him on your team to be successful. And ultimately, Joe Burrow is going to take up all your cap space. Jamar Chase is going to take up all your cap space. Having three huge weapons like that is not sustainable. So, maybe they're just of the opinion, okay, if we can just keep him for one more year, we're right there. And maybe that's true. I mean, obviously the Bengals offense was incredible, but I don't know if the front office watched any of these games, but they've got about 11 players they need to replace on defense. Maybe 10.
10. Like, the defensive line, I can't remember his name. Is it Hendrickson?
Hendrickson. Yeah. They can keep him. But pretty much everybody else needs to fucking go, or needs to get you need a new weight room or something, because that defense was so atrocious. So that's why it reminds me of the Brown situation. Like, you have this asset. He's taking up a bunch of your cap space. There's this looming problem that's going to manifest itself and cause you an issue at some point in time. And you have all of these things that you need to fix in order to be confident that you can compete at the highest level. Just let him go. Just let him go and look toward the future. I don't understand why. I mean, I get it. I do understand, because it's T. Higgins. He's awesome. You want to keep him.
Or trade him. Like, just trade him. Like, there's so many teams out there. The Patriots need a wide receiver. The Broncos need a wide receiver. Like, let him go.
That's why they tagged him. Maybe their plan is to trade him. They want to tag him. They want to solidify him on the roster and then trade him. Maybe that's the plan, and that would be reasonable. But
I would, yeah. But
it seems like they're just living in this fantasy land where they're like, we have this problem that's going to materialize, but we'll just keep kicking the can down the road, and maybe eventually it'll take care of itself. And I got news for you: it's not going to take care of itself.
I think they should trade him. I really do. Because I think that they're going to have to and look, Joe Burrow's come out and said like he'd be willing to take a little bit of a pay cut to pay T. They want to keep him around. I get that, right? But like, realistically, I just don't think it makes sense. Like, you're going to pay Jamar. You have to pay Jamar. Jamar, just like you mentioned, is one of if a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL right now, bar none. You have to pay him. Go find a half decent wide receiver too. You don't need 2 wide receiver ones on your team. Go find another wide receiver that's still a good talent that you don't have to leverage your entire payroll on, when you do have a competent quarterback in Joe Burrow. Like, go find a half decent wide receiver too. Go get Jerry Jeudy. Fuck. Like, just go get somebody that can still catch the ball and is a decent talent that you don't have to pay an astronomical amount of money to.
Yeah, I honestly, like, if Joe Burrow, and this is another thing that doesn't make sense to me. Again, I get it. Joe Burrow, his contract is $275 million, okay? And that's not even counting his endorsements. That's not even counting commercials that he wants to do, or his fashion brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you got more money than you can spend in a lifetime. So why doesn't Joe Burrow, and why don't more NFL quarterbacks just say, hey, pay me half of what you're paying me? Like, I will take half. And guess what? It's still like $80 million. So that's still pretty freaking good. And now you can afford to buy T. Higgins. Now you can afford to pay, some defensive weapons. And by the way, Joe Burrow, you think Bengals fans love him now. If he said, yeah, I'm going to take a 50% pay cut so we can keep our weapons here, he will be the hero of Cincinnati for the rest of his life. And he's still going to be filthy freaking rich. So I don't get why more quarterbacks don't do that. That doesn't make sense to me either.
Well, I'd like $250 million over.
I would too, but I'd also like $80 million.
Well, yeah. I just like $1 million. I mean, I'm not that stingy.
That's a good point. Honestly, you give me $500,000, I bet I can turn that into something good for a long time. You'd have to be more skilled with investing and stuff to make
Sure.
that last forever, but you could do it.
Raiders. This is just a quick one. Michael Mayer, he's a second-year tight end for the Raiders, is officially on the trade block after Brock Bowers' historic season. Not surprised by this. I mean, obviously we know what Bowers is as a talent. He's incredible. But I was kind of scratching my head when the Raiders did draft him because I was like, you don't need a tight end. You have Michael Mayer. You just drafted him, this last season. So it's official. Michael Mayer is now on the trade block. I expect somebody to want him because he was definitely not the worst talent to own. So don't hate that move. The Buccaneers. It is rumored that the Patriots have interest in trading for Chris Godwin as long as he passes medicals.
Oh.
That one could be spicy. I mean, the Patriots desperately need wide receiver help. I would be interested to see what the Bucs asking price for Godwin is, but I imagine it's probably not insane just because Godwin is older. He's having some, health concerns that he's continued to have year over year as far as those injuries are concerned. But I would kind of like that. I mean, the Patriots desperately need some wide receivers. So if Godwin were to go over there and play with Drake May, that could be interesting.
Yeah, passing medicals. That's like maybe the one hurdle Godwin can't jump over, which is unfortunate. They're like, yeah, we need to look at your body and make sure it still works. And he's like, fuck, like I can't get it. That's like if someone's like, hey Scotty, I want to hire you. This job is just like reading and writing. Like, yeah, you could probably do those things. But the one thing you have to be able to do is you got to be able to have a 45-inch vertical. It's like, oh, okay, well, I can't do that.
Can't do that. That's kind of Godwin's like, while we're talking about wide receivers that are struggling here in the injury department / age, the Seahawks. All signs are looking like Tyler Lockett being cut from the Seahawks if they cannot come to terms with a revised contract. It is also worth noting, Tyler Lockett will be 33 years old this year. If you guys haven't watched Tyler Lockett play football recently, he's really found a way. The reason he's still playing at 33 years old is because as soon as he catches the ball, without a doubt, he falls to the ground and just lets a D-back touch him because he does not want to take contact. He will run out of bounds. He is not looking for contact. He's looking for everything possible to avoid contact, which has worked out largely in his favor. I mean, at 33 years old, he's still playing wide receiver, but this comes as no surprise to me. I mean, he is getting older. He is definitely slowing down. You've got DK Metcalf and JSN there with the Seahawks, so kind of makes sense. He is a cut candidate, and I don't know if a team would really re-sign, and maybe a desperate team might look to to sign him somewhere. But it is also worth mentioning, I've seen some chatter about DK Metcalf and potentially being a trade candidate. However, the Seahawks have stated that he is not up for trade.
Yeah, I don't think they can get rid of both of them. And Lockett obviously is the one you would get rid of just because, sure. I mean, you just have them stand next to each other and it's pretty clear which one you want on your team.
One of them is a machine that is scary and huge.
Yeah. I am going to make a prediction.
Okay.
That Tyler Lockett is going to join whatever, let me rephrase it this way. Whatever two teams are playing in the Super Bowl next season, Tyler Lockett's going to be on one of those teams. Because he seems like the perfect guy to get cut, not sign with a team, and then bam, you have a team that is making a legitimate run, and they say, we just need a little bit more juice. Tyler Lockett's like the prime guy to bring onto the roster at that point in the season. You have a veteran, you have a guy who can, make big plays, who can avoid obviously getting injured, so you feel pretty safe bringing him on, and I just see that happening. I feel like that's likely.
That's not a bad take. I don't hate that one. Last piece of news here, the Cowboys have opened up contract discussions with Micah Parsons. Not surprised there. We'll see what that comes to. Are the Cowboys all in this year, Scotty? Was Jerry Jones a year behind?
We have no idea. Like, we thought they were all in last year, but we don't even realize the next gear of all in that Jerry Jones has.
Baby.
Yeah, we're about to see it unfold right before our eyes. Dak Prescott said they're, just a couple pieces away from being a Super Bowl team. So,
yeah,
you never know.
Sure, Dak. That's something. Don't know if I agree with that. Let's go over to the Combine and we'll get out of here. Largely, this week in the Combine was kind of uneventful. Many of the top recruits didn't work out or participate in the drills, which, we could understand as they don't want to get hurt, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not here for it. Go play in the drills. That's my take. Go do the drills. We want to see it. I want to see it. Show me that you're competitive. Show me you want that. There were a couple wide receivers who were like, I'm going to beat Xavier Worthy's record. And while they didn't, I kind of like seeing the arrogance and the cockiness, and then when they don't do it, I'm like, yeah, you didn't do it. But regardless, like, you want it, you're hungry for it, you want to prove that you can do it. So Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas, he ran a 4.2940, and I believe according to Allen, Andy Reid's boner just smacked the table again.
It'd be sweet. We just load up on Texas wide receivers,
just fast little guys. Ashton Gentry, he's one of probably the highest touted running backs in this draft, coming out of Boise State. And especially, you know, with the revival of some of the running backs, we had Derrick Henry this last season, looked really great. Saquon Barkley, of course. So, like, is there a resurgence of running back? Ashton Gentry certainly wants to make the case for that. There's rumors that the Cowboys could be looking at him, which they need to replace Zeke. I don't hate that, actually. I think that would be kind of a good move for him.
Yeah, I don't either. I think, you know, the Cowboys just need some juice. They need to find some juice, because what killed them last year was their own, like, lack of mental fortitude, because they realize, you know, talent-wise, the Cowboys are good. I mean, they've been good for a long time. They've always been a top-tier team in the regular season. And last year, what we witnessed was a mental collapse more than anything else. Like, it was sort of like...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You talked a lot of shit on Travis Kelce's Super Bowl performance. I also believe that was a mental collapse. He was just mentally assassinated right there on national TV. And the Cowboys went through the same thing. They're just like, wow, like, this should not be going this bad. Now I don't even want to be here. And then you know, it snowballs after that. They just need some juice, something to be excited about, and we might see the Cowboys competing at a relatively high level in short order. Now, they're not going to win Super Bowls because they can't ever do anything in the playoffs. And until I see differently, I'm always going to say that, just like everybody else says that. But someone like Genty, you know, you get in this star running back who basically broke every record besides Barry Sanders' records in college, and you say, we can work with that.
Yeah, well, and, you know, we're talking about running backs. Like, the Cowboys' run game last season was absolutely abysmal. Like, they didn't have one. And it is also worth noting that Zach Martin, the all-pro guard, retired this year for him. So that is a huge loss for that offensive line. But I mean, I think that would be great for them. They need to establish a little bit more of a run game again. And I kind of like Gentry going there. I don't hate that. I do have a question for you, Scotty. Just about the combine in general is, you know, we see these guys coming in spandex and running 40s and jumping and stuff like that. And it kind of got me thinking a little bit about, like, how much weight and bearing should this really hold? Because they're not wearing helmets. They're not wearing pads. They're not fully, like, kitted out, so to speak. And yeah, you can see how fast they run a 40 time in their underwear, but, like, and that gives you somewhat of a barometer as far as how fast they are on the field. But, like, pads and helmets and those kind of things definitely change things a little bit. Do they not, in your mind?
I even think it's less than that. It's more of just the way the game of football is played. You know, rarely are you running in a straight line. Rarely does it matter, unless you're Saquon Barkley, how high you can jump from a standing position. Like, these things are
backwards position.
Yeah, these things are just metrics to try and determine how athletic. Like, it's sort of like any one of these tests doesn't really matter all that much when it comes to performing on a football field, right? You could be as fast as Xavier Worthy. If you can't catch, doesn't matter. If you can't take a hit, doesn't matter. So it's just sort of like the culmination of everything makes you realize, okay, you know, these guys are elite in terms of athleticism for this particular group. Maybe that raises their stock a little bit, but ultimately what you're looking at are, first and foremost, their play on the field in college. You know, if you're playing Division I football, you are competing with the top tier talent of your current range. So you do get a pretty good sense of how they are as a player. But the other thing that matters to me more than anything else is, you know, intangibles. How's their personality? Are they relatively responsible? Are they, you know, going to get high and, you know, run a bunch of people over in a car? Like, these things are more important than how fast you run the 40, than, you know, 0.2 of a second on your 40 time or 1 inch on your vertical. So I don't know. The combines just become kind of a spectacle, and it's not even really a good spectacle, as we've seen, you know, this season, where a lot of the top players are like, this isn't going to help me. It's only going to hurt me, right? If I run a slightly slower 40 time, that's going to be in the headlines. So I might as well just not do it. And so you end up with, like, this thing that the NFL wants to be a spectacle. They want to make money on it, but you don't have the top talent performing in it anyway. So it just kind of feels, I don't know. The
like
NFL's
maybe the mid-range guys, it makes more sense for them than it would 100%. Like your Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, if you're trying to catch someone's eye, then yeah, absolutely. Because if you run a flashy 40 time and then you're all over social media for a week, that's going to raise your stock, and that's good. But any of the top prospects, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for them to do this. And plus, you know, do you remember hearing anything about Puka Nacua in the combine? Do you remember hearing anything about, you know, Isaiah Pacheco in the combine? It's like, no, you find talent by examining what they do on the field and
off the field,
picking
like
the
you
diamond out of
mentioned.
the rough. Yeah, and off the field.
Yeah, and I'm largely of the belief that like character can, not all times, but many times, trump some of those things as well. Like a person's character and their dedication and their work ethic, and those are things that you don't get to see at the draft, right? Like I think those largely outweigh a lot of like, you know, I run a 1/10 of a second faster than this other guy. Like, okay, but just like you mentioned, like if you're going to be a shitty person and not put in the work and not show up to meetings on time and all the intangibles like you just discussed, like those matter infinitely more, in my opinion, than, you know, exactly how fast you are or how strong you are.
The number one intangible, and I'm sure, you know, front offices have figured this out, is coachability.
Yes.
Because no matter how good you are at football, when you get to the NFL, you are going to need a lot of coaching. And if you think you're hot shit, or if you think you're too good to listen to the people around you or to buy into the sort of team environment, we don't want you. Like, that's the bottom line. If I'm a GM or I'm in the front office of one of these teams and I'm interviewing coaches from these college programs, that's the first question I'm asking. How is their coachability? Scale of 1 to 10. Like, do they receive criticism well? Did you see growth as a player throughout their time here? Those are the most important things, because that ultimately is what makes or breaks players in the NFL. We see all the time top tier talent in Division I football flop in the NFL, and it's because they don't have the capacity to get better as a player as they spend time in this higher competition.
Did
So
you
that
just say
needs
the
to
name
be
Johnny Manziel?
Yeah, I mean, the list is infinite.
Yeah,
but that's ultimately what you're looking for. Like you want the athleticism, you want the skill, the natural skill, but ultimately you can take a player with average skill and make him into a great player in the right environment. And in order to do that, the player has to be willing to buy in and has to be willing to, you know, to look at their coaches, no matter who they are, and say, "You're the coach. I respect it. I'm going to do what you say, and we'll get better together." And a lot of players, unfortunately, it's kind of a weird thing when you're the best at what you do and you have been since you were 8 years old. It can be difficult to take coaching a little bit, especially from some, you know, they say if you can't, those who can't do, coach. So you're talking to people who you know you're better than as a player, even in their prime. And you have to be willing to take what they say and learn from it. And a lot of people aren't.
No, I agree with you completely. That's all the time we got today. Once again, if you're interested in some March Gladness free signed jerseys, go follow us over on X. Retweet that tweet and comment your favorite football player. And this week's free jersey is Rashee Rice. It is a signed Rashee Rice jersey for the Chiefs. So go do that. And we appreciate all you dirty old nasty brainiacs out there. And that's it, Scotty. That's all the time we got. So let's get out of here. We
are
out.
Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a brainiac.